morning.
Morning, Dawn. Hold on. Just getting your gallery view. All
Oh, I
right.
got to, do you know what's happened to the sound again?
You all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's because you
Okay.
changed your dress.
What do you mean by that?
You've got a summery top on.
It doesn't affect your hearing.
Ah, might do though. Yeah.
You're like mad.
Need a necklace or something there, I think.
Oh,
Do you
no.
want to go away and start again, or you're all right?
No, I'm fine. I don't know what's about with you.
Right, let's go straight in with the it's episode 30, 22nd of April 2020. Here we go. Intro music coming up. We're going straight in with this. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Right, that'll do. It's a much more modern, popular track than some of them that I've come up with. But I haven't given too much away because it is quite well known. So maybe a few of our younger viewers might get it. I know it drives Angie Crush mad not being able to get some of these tunes, but she is, of course, a lot younger than us. So there you go.
I don't know who you're dishing there, me or her.
Well, yesterday the answer was the national anthem was the Canadian national anthem, and we didn't have to wait for Hubert from Canada to come in because Andy Poppleton got it right. So that was
There you go.
impressive. So well done to Andy. And next section is, of course, introducing one of our viewers or regular viewers, or who gives a lot of feedback, and that is Hubert from Canada. So here he comes. I've got a photo of him here. In fact, it's a shame actually because I don't think I've got any photos of when he came over in, I think it was 2016 when my dad passed away. So
God, was it then? Oh,
yeah,
God.
that's 4 years gone by almost.
I know. It doesn't seem that long, does it?
So I've had to go on Hubert's Facebook page to grab one. What do you think of this then?
It's not with his haircut, is it?
That one.
You should explain that they're playing charades and he's concentrating. He's not sort of like drunk or anything. You're not very kind, are you?
Well, yeah, poor old Hubert. He's got a great sense of humour. He has got a great sense of humour because I could have put this other one up.
Please.
You know, and I won't do that.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, and Hubert, we need some better photographs on your Facebook page that we can use. Yeah. Anyway, as seems to be the trend now, we have a very quiet day in terms of feedback to these episodes, and then it all kicks off in the evening. Now, I don't know that's because people are on the source or because the TV is so rubbish at the moment.
No idea.
Thanks for that.
Well, I'm not in their minds, am I? I don't know why. Perhaps they're working or something, and they have you have to get the work done first.
Yeah. Well, we got quite a lot of feedback came in later in the day. For example, Alan Buckle, and your comments on my comments about running and well, we've got age group issues, with veterans athletics. We've got numbers being pinned on correctly on vests, and we've got injury issues and stuff like that. Applies to a lot of sport, but of course we were involved in running. Alan Buckle agreed there was too many veterans prizes at local road races, but he'd like to see a little bit more recognition in the large championships of some of the age groups, like the National and South of England cross country championships. He does feel he's got an advantage being in the over 60 category in terms of his lifestyle to keep his running going. Tinged with a little bit of disappointment, none of his mates asked him to go clubbing, which helps his sleep patterns.
It's probably a good idea not to go clubbing at 60 when you're trying to run. I thought that was a tongue-in-cheek sort of
I,
comment.
I can remember the guy I used to work with. I, I'll name his name, Chris. He went out with some friends once to Da Vinci's in Tunbridge Wells. He must have been, I'm guessing, 45, something like that. And he had two other husband and wives with him and his wife. And they got to the front door and the bouncer said, "Are you serious, sir?" And I think that was the last time he tried to go clubbing. So, Alan, you're 15 years past that, so be careful. Now, Grazia, she's feeling better about herself. How she's coping with this. She struggled in the early days, but she's getting used to it, got a structure, working from home, which she really enjoys. She remembered the first time you ever spoke to her. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. I normally, if I see something, I will, that obviously people don't understand the rules or something like that, I will go and speak to them, but I do it nicely. I don't sort of like, what the hell do you think you're doing? It's not that sort of approach. It's please could you wear your number on your chest next time, because that's what it says in the rule book, and that's where we're looking, you see. So when you have to look at someone, as I explained yesterday, we look at someone's belly button, that fraction of a sign, especially when you're in 100 meters, it's gone. You haven't got the results, and you don't. I mean, at the moment we haven't always got photo finish, so we're relying on our eyesight, as bad as it might be.
And Dave Minter was implying, on that basis, then, if you look at the old photographs from the Los Angeles Olympics 1984, would you have disqualified the whole field?
You don't disqualify people for wearing their numbers in the incorrect place. I must admit, today I don't see at top meetings, I don't see too many of them, but you always get one big name who's been paid to appear, not necessarily at the Olympics, but most of the I don't know, the Diamond Leagues and things like that. And you'll get the odd person who's wearing his number, not in the correct place. But if you care to read any rule book, it will tell you that you should wear your number on your chest.
Yeah.
It's not a DQ offence, though. It's just something that is so much better if you can. But bear in mind that at big meets, you've got photo finish and you've got the technology, so it's not so quite important. And we're umpiring rather than anything else, so it doesn't become so noticeable. It is the lower down leagues that it matters quite a lot, because normally, 9 times out of 10, you'll probably be using your eyesight to get the result.
Yeah, good. And Hubert from Canada came in, of course, late because he's on a different time zone than the rest of us. He came in with a few points talking about, first of all, he's got 6 fence panels up.
I know, well done, Hubert. That's brilliant.
I think we've inspired him. He thought he'd better get that sorted and a photograph taken before the end of this lockdown spell. So good on Hubert. He's got 6 fence panels up, doubled his output. I think he's got 10 to go. But he said there is, we were talking about you calling me chubby, fat shaming.
It was a tongue-in-cheek comment. It was the way you were describing yourself, heavy bone. In other words, I thought I'll add a little comment in there. It's just my sense of humour. I didn't mean to. I wouldn't call anybody who was running chubby. So you're safe.
But as a running category, you wanted a chubby. I wanted
you wanted a heavy boned category. Well, there's going to be interpretations to that, isn't there?
There is, but apparently there is something called the Clydesdale category that enables comparisons of performances by weight, which I hadn't come across, but Hubert seemed to think one of his friends had qualified for the Boston Marathon via that system. So that might need a little bit more research, but I thought that was a very good idea. I'd really like to know, I don't know how you quite do it, but I'd really like to know where I ranked on, say, over 11.5 stone runner at the time, or whatever it might be.
You're going to have to find out everybody's weight at the time. I mean, I just think you're wasting your time. Can't you find something better to do?
Yeah, right, there you go. But more interestingly, he had something called, he thought that he was disadvantaged because of his length of his legs. and he wanted an inseam category. All right, do you know what that is?
Yes,
It's
it's like when you measure for your trousers. It's that sort of measurement.
it's the distance between your crotch and your ankle.
Yeah.
Now, how would you fancy that as an official?
Are you trying?
Monitoring that in the call room before races to check.
Are you trying to make it an absolute nonsense? One, you'd have to have a man measuring the crutch for any man and a woman, and they'd think you've gone crazy. They would actually think you've gone crazy. There's enough to do in call room without having to add jobs to do as well. I think it would be, I don't know, a special thing that you do outside competitions. You couldn't do it in competition at all.
Okay, so have you got anything embarrassing? I thought it'd be a good question for being in the call room, which is where people get checked for their pins and spikes and everything else before races. Have you had any embarrassing moments where athletes have lost it, or they've forgotten something, or whatever it might have been?
You don't normally get irate.
Embarrassing
or embarrassing ones. The only embarrassing one I've had is when I've had to sort of like ask for someone to change their shorts, etc.
A female.
But I mean, most of the things that happen in call room are things like you get like wheelchair athletes, and they can't go through call room, as most times call room's too narrow for them, so they have to go around the outside, and then you have to check. It's your duty to check to make sure there's no pins or anything that can affect their tires and things like that, and that's quite difficult when you're dealing with that. But apart from that, I mean, most of the athletes are in a zone. They're concentrating on what they've got to do. You're checking the numbers, checking the spikes. You're happy with most people, let's be honest with them, and then only occasionally do you need to sort of like chivvy someone up or ask them not to do something.
So you've had nothing like what we would call the Mark Pitcairn-Knowles incident?
Well, I don't know what the Mark Pitcairn-Knowles incident is. Do tell.
Well, he turned up for a Monday night training run, whipped his tracksuit bottoms on, and had forgotten to put some shorts on. He had nothing.
No, we don't have anything like that in call room.
You got a good idea of his inseam category in that one, I tell you.
Oh dear, that would make me laugh.
And finally, on the feedback, rather touching feedback from both Scott Shermer and Graham Saker, concerned about me having to give up running. It's I think it's one of those things where I was better to be told to completely stop rather than just do a little bit less, because I'll be creaking in all sorts of areas by now. And I think whatever is thrown at you, just have to look at the positives. And I probably wouldn't have got into coaching and team managing so
I think in some respects it was a good thing for you, because you're now using all your knowledge to help others, and I personally, I think that's a good way to go. I think you enjoy it. You certainly seem to be sort of like spend hours doing various different things, etc. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that you need a release. So you go in the gym every day now, so and you wouldn't miss a session unless there was a specific problem. You're out all day and you're back late or something like that. So in a sense, you've still kept that discipline that you've always had, and I think you always will. And sport is about discipline, and it doesn't matter how many people tell you it's not. It is, because unless you're disciplined enough to want to go out and do it on a regular basis, you're not going to improve.
Well, that is a very good segue into next point, which we started watching. It's on Netflix. It's a series about the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and others. It's called The Last Dance. We watched the first episode, and the start of it was all about how he wasn't the most talented basketball player, but he just put in a lot of hard work, didn't he?
I mean, the one thing that stood out in that programme was the fact that he was determined to prove others wrong. He wasn't worried about what they thought about him. He knew he could, if he worked hard, and he had other people backing him up on this, that if you work hard, you will become better. And I mean, there was one guy who said, "Oh, for a couple of weeks, I was better than Michael Johnson," and it's sort of
Jordan, Michael Jordan.
Jordan, sorry, not Johnson. And he, in a sense, he was quite proud that for 2 weeks he was better than him. But in 2 weeks, that he absorbed everything and he learned a lot, and he made his own decisions about what he was going to do, what he was going to apply. So it was very interesting.
Especially when he went in the room where the rest of his team were smoking pot or sniffing a line of drugs or drinking, and he had nothing to do with it, and he was quite young. That was
He just said, "I'm not doing that." So I mean, in a sense, you do have to be strong, and it's not easy, because other people around you will egg you on and say, "Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? What, this is good." It said, so it's so easy to fall on bad ways rather than stick to what you really want to do in life. And I admire him a great deal, because he did stick to what he wanted to do.
Yeah. And just finally, you remember we were talking about people being nice to people after they've died at funerals and things like that, with eulogies. But Neil Black, who was the physio initially, and then he was the UK Athletics Performance Director, passed away. I believe he had a heart attack, age 60, which is about where we are.
God.
And
what do you mean about where we are? I am 60.
Yeah. And what struck me was the number of athletes that have come out on social media saying what a fantastic guy he was, and how great support he gave and what great sense of humour. All this coming out after he's gone, whereas in fact in recent months he's been linked to the decision to use Alberto Salazar with Mo Farah, and that almost became his legacy, when in actual fact it was totally not that. His real legacy is how many people he's helped, how popular he was, and how he worked with so many.
It depends whether you're going to listen to the media, who are always on a witch hunt about various things, etc. And the thing is, with the media, they don't tell you the whole story either. So we have, it really does take somebody to sort of like think, is that right? I knew that person and he wasn't like that. And I just think it's quite sad today, because we are driven by negatives rather than positives. And I just wish we'd get the other way around and only have a few negatives in the world, because I find them quite depressing. And I'm now not listening to the news at all. I take about 1.5 minutes to make my mind up that I'm not listening to this crap. And to be quite honest with you, I don't care whether it's true or false. I just find the way it's presented or the way they go about their business is just wrong. And I think this is what's happened with this poor coach, and I think this is unfair.
Well, hopefully people will see what has been written the last day or so. I mean, I didn't know him, but I did have some other dealings with him about 5 years ago when he was the performance director, and I wrote to him about emails about an under-23 selection for the European Championships, which I felt, and a lot of people felt, was unfair at the time. Nothing to do with the Tunbridge athlete, 2 other guys. And I wrote to him, and I wasn't expecting a reply, because it normally just goes into the ether of a larger organisation. But he wrote a very personal reply, thanked me, and he said, "Look, this is between you and I, nothing more. So it won't be repeated anywhere," and I didn't. But it was very honest and gave me a good insight into the difficulties with such selections. So I thought that was unusual, because a lot of people would have just ignored that. So bear in mind, a communication might come in to you from anywhere, and it could make a difference.
Yeah. I think if you try and explain why you're doing something, it doesn't always seem to be fair, I agree, but at the end of the day, everyone is doing their best, and I must admit, that there are some selections that you just don't understand, And you think, for instance, like when we go to the Olympics, when they're abroad, etc., we don't take so many. Is this governed by money? And what do we need to do to change that? Because we should be giving youngsters opportunities, and going to an Olympics is such a fantastic opportunity, and they would learn so much from it.
Well, we'll talk about that another day.
That's a big subject, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And you've opened the door to this, because it does, selections is one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the associated things are driven by the need for medals, and that comes from...
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
I'm not sure that it should be.
Got a cheerier note to leave on?
Oh, I don't know. I mean...
Come on, you've got to lift everybody before you say cheerio.
I can't think of anything like that off the hook, etc. I'm quite a cheery person anyway. I never that's why I'm not listening to the media at the moment, because it's driving me nuts, and it would depress me. But I am quite happy, and I'm going to get out in the sunshine today, and I'm going to walk Oscar in a minute. So I'm going to get on, and I'm going to be happy and sunny, and I'm going to say hello to everybody. That's a good thing. See how many reactions I'm going to get. They go, whoa. Okay.
You can do a little survey and report back tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll do that.
How many people you can say good morning or hello to, and
before they run off.
Okay, done. See you then. Bye.
See you later. Bye.